I never expected my phone to ring at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday. Even less expected was seeing my twin sister Amanda's name on the screen after 6 years of silence. When I answered, her voice was thick with tears, begging to move into my downtown apartment because she was pregnant again and had nowhere to go. The same sister whose first pregnancy at 18 led to our parents kicking me out while keeping her, destroying my college plans and forcing me to rebuild from nothing. As I held the phone, I could still feel the weight of that one backpack I was allowed to take the night my father pushed me out the door. All because they believed Amanda when she said I had introduced her to Jackson, the boy who got her pregnant. Her voice now, desperate and familiar, sent me right back to that rainy April night when my family chose her lies over my truth, leaving me alone in the world before I could even vote. Growing up with Amanda in our 4-bedroom house in suburban Columbus, Ohio, was mostly happy, though the signs of what would come were always there if I had been wise enough to see them. Our parents, George and Linda Harris, ran a successful insurance agency together and provided us with comfortable middle-class lives. From elementary school through high school, Amanda and I shared the same friends, the same classes, and even the same birthday parties until we turned 13. That was when things began to change. "Christoph, why can't you be more focused like your sister?" became my father's favorite phrase at dinner. No matter that I maintained a solid B average while working part-time at the local grocery store. Amanda's straight, as were what mattered. "Your sister is going places," my mother would say while hanging Amanda's academic achievement certificates on the refrigerator. My football trophies stayed in my bedroom, deemed too bulky for display. Despite the favoritism, I never resented my sister during those early years. We had our secret language growing up, the way many twins do. We would finish each other's sentences and defend each other against neighborhood bullies. I believed nothing could break our bond. By junior year, I had saved almost $6,000 from my summer jobs mowing lawns and my weekend shifts stocking shelves. While my parents funded Amanda's SAT prep courses and college tours, I paid for mine, determined to prove I could make something of myself too. My passion was computer programming. I spent hours learning to code, building simple games and websites, dreaming of creating software that would change people's lives. My neighbor, Troy Jackson, was the only person who encouraged this interest, lending me books on coding and letting me use his computer when mine crashed. "You've got real talent, Chris," Troy would say as we debugged a program together in his garage. "Keep at it, and you'll go places." I applied for a scholarship to Northeast Tech University, the same school Amanda had her sights on. The scholarship would cover full tuition based on a programming project I had spent months perfecting. With my savings covering room and board, I would finally have the chance to prove myself on my own merits. 3 weeks before the scholarship results were announced, I sat at my computer to submit my final application materials, only to find my entire project folder empty. "What happened?" I asked Amanda, who often used my computer for her own schoolwork. "My Northeast Tech application is gone. All my files are deleted." Amanda looked up from her textbook with innocent eyes. "Probably a computer glitch. You should have backed it up. Mom and Dad always say how careless you are with important things." I stayed up 3 nights straight, rewriting as much of the project as I could remember, barely meeting the deadline. When I received the rejection letter while Amanda celebrated her acceptance, I was devastated but not defeated. I still had applications out to other schools and was determined to find my path. That was when I learned the truth. My best friend Tanner called me over to his house one afternoon, looking uncomfortable. "I need to show you something," he said, pulling up Amanda's social media page on his computer. There, in a private message Tanner had been mistakenly included on, was Amanda bragging to her friend Stephanie about how she had deleted my scholarship project. "Christoph always thinks he's so clever with his coding stuff," she had written, "but I made sure Northeast Tech will be my thing, not his." Deleted his precious project and watched him scramble to redo it. Parents still think it was his carelessness. Perfect. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. The betrayal was so profound I could physically feel it in my chest. When I confronted Amanda that night, she denied everything, then switched tactics when I showed her the message Tanner had forwarded to me. "It was just a joke," she said, rolling her eyes. "Besides, you wouldn't have gotten that scholarship anyway. I did you a favor by not letting you get your hopes up." I never told our parents. They wouldn't have believed me over their perfect daughter. Instead, I applied to the state university with its lower tuition and was accepted with a partial scholarship. It wasn't my dream school, but it was a path forward. I had 2 months until graduation, then freedom from the shadow of my twin. But Amanda wasn't finished destroying my plans. It was a Thursday in April when everything fell apart. I had just finished my shift at the grocery store and was looking forward to a quiet evening working on a new coding project. When I walked through our front door at 9:30, the atmosphere hit me immediately. The house was silent except for muffled sobbing coming from the living room. My mother sat on the couch, her arm around Amanda, who was curled against her with red, puffy eyes. My father stood by the fireplace, his face a mask of fury I had never seen before. "What's going on?" I asked, setting my backpack down by the door. "You tell us," my father said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Tell us about Jackson Mercer." I shrugged, confused. "The guy from Amanda's calculus class? I barely know him." "Why?" Amanda's sobbing grew louder. My mother glared at me with such hatred that I took a step back. "Your sister is 4 months pregnant," my father said. "And according to her, you're the one who introduced them and encouraged them to date behind our backs." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed, until I realized they were serious. "What? That's not true at all. I've maybe spoken to the guy twice in my life." "Stop lying!" my mother shouted, startling me with her vehemence. "Amanda told us everything. How you invited her to parties where you supplied alcohol. How you pushed her toward Jackson, saying he was a good guy who would treat her right." "None of that happened," I said, my voice rising as panic set in. "Amanda, tell them the truth. You know I never did any of that." But Amanda only buried her face deeper into our mother's shoulder, her body shaking with sobs. "I thought you were irresponsible, Christoph, but I never thought you would betray this family like this," my father said, stepping toward me. "Your sister had a future. She was going to Northeast Tech. Now everything is in jeopardy because of your recklessness." "My recklessness?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "She's the one who got pregnant. How is that my fault even if I had introduced them? Which I didn't." My father's hand shot out so fast I didn't have time to react. The slap connected with my cheek with such force that I staggered backward. "Get upstairs and pack a bag," he said through gritted teeth. "You're not staying in this house tonight, or any night from now on." "George," my mother said, though her tone held no objection, only concern about the logistics. "He's still 17. We can't legally." "He turns 18 in 3 weeks," my father countered. "We'll call it an early transition to adulthood. The influence he's had on his sister stops tonight." I looked at Amanda, waiting for her to speak up, to tell the truth. Instead, through her fingers, I caught the slightest hint of a smile. That night, my father watched as I packed a single backpack with clothes and essentials. He confiscated my laptop, claiming it had been purchased with family money and therefore wasn't mine to take. He drove me to the Sunset Motel on the edge of town, paid for 3 nights, and handed me $200 in cash. "This is more generous than you deserve," he said as I sat stunned in the passenger seat. "After what you've done to your sister's life, you should consider yourself lucky I'm giving you anything." "Dad, please listen to me," I begged, my voice breaking. "Amanda is lying. I don't know why, but none of what she said is true. Call Tanner. Call anyone from school. They'll tell you I never hosted parties or encouraged Amanda to date Jackson." "I've heard enough of your lies," he said, unlocking the doors. "Your mother and I need to focus on helping Amanda through this difficult time. Don't call, don't come home. When you're ready to admit what you did and make a genuine apology, maybe we can discuss limited contact." He drove away without looking back, leaving me standing in the parking lot of a roadside motel with my life in tatters. The next morning, I received a text from Tanner that made the betrayal complete. "Dude, just heard the craziest thing at Will's party last night. Amanda was there bragging about how she got you kicked out. Said she needed you gone so your parents would focus all their resources on her and the baby. Said Jackson isn't even sure he's the father, but she needed a villain in the story and you were perfect." Everyone was shocked. I recorded some of it on my phone. "Want me to send it?" I sat on the motel bed, reading and rereading the text. The depth of Amanda's betrayal was incomprehensible to me. We shared the same blood, the same birthday, the same first home in our mother's womb. How could she destroy my life so callously? I asked Tanner to send the recording, thinking I could use it to prove my innocence to my parents. But when I tried calling home, my number had already been blocked. I walked 4 miles to our house the next day, only to find the locks changed and a note on the door warning that the police would be called if I didn't leave immediately. My sister hadn't just taken my home and my family. She had taken my future. When the 3 nights at the Sunset Motel ran out, reality set in hard and fast. I had $200 from my father, $87 in my checking account, and nowhere to go. My first night of homelessness, I slept in my car in the Walmart parking lot, waking up every hour in fear someone would notice me. The next morning, I used $5 to buy a gym membership at Planet Fitness, not for exercise but for the showers and bathrooms. I applied for jobs at every fast food restaurant and retail store in Columbus, taking the first 2 offers I got: morning shifts at McDonald's and evening shifts at a gas station convenience store. Between jobs, I would sit in the public library, using their computers to apply for financial aid for college and research cheap housing options. I sent emails to my parents explaining my innocence, attaching Tanner's audio recording of Amanda's confession at the party. The emails bounced back. I sent physical letters that were returned unopened with "return to sender" scrawled across them. My life became a grueling routine of minimum wage work, fast food meals, and sleeping in my car. After 3 weeks, I had saved enough to rent a room in a rundown house in the worst part of town, sharing space with 4 other guys I didn't know or trust. I kept my few possessions in my car trunk during the day, not daring to leave anything in the house. By June, 2 months after being kicked out, I had applied for emergency financial aid at the community college and been rejected due to my parents' income. On paper, I was still their dependent, living at home with all needs provided for. The reality couldn't have been further from the truth. One night, after a 12-hour double shift at the gas station, I parked my car behind the abandoned Kmart, where I sometimes slept when I couldn't face the chaos of the shared house. I was so exhausted I didn't notice someone approaching until they knocked on my window. Startled awake, I found myself staring into the concerned face of Troy, my old neighbor and coding mentor. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. "Christoph, is that you? What are you doing sleeping in your car?" Troy's voice was muffled through the glass. I rolled down the window, embarrassment and relief warring inside me. "Hey, Troy. It's complicated. Open the door. Let's talk." His tone left no room for argument. Over the next hour, sitting in the front seats of my beat-up Honda, I told Troy everything: the scholarship sabotage, Amanda's pregnancy, the false accusations, being kicked out, my parents' refusal to hear the truth, and my current desperate situation. Troy listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he sat in silence for a long moment. "Pack your stuff," he said finally. "You're coming home with me. I've got a spare room, and it's yours as long as you need it." "I can't ask you to do that," I protested. "I'll find a way to make it on my own." "You're not asking. I'm offering, and I'm not taking no for an answer." Troy's tone was firm but kind. "Besides, my Uncle Frank is looking for someone to help with basic IT stuff at his startup. Pays better than fast food, and you'd be learning skills that could lead somewhere." 2 days later, I moved into Troy's spare room and started working at Smart Tech Solutions, Frank's small but growing company that developed software for local businesses. Frank was a burly, straight-talking man in his 50s who reminded me of what a father should be. "So you know coding, huh?" he asked during my informal interview in his cluttered office. "Show me what you can do." I spent the next hour solving a programming problem he set up, aware of him watching over my shoulder. When I finished, he nodded with approval. "Not bad. Rough around the edges, but you've got instincts. I can work with that." He offered me an entry-level position as a junior developer at $15 an hour, more than double what I was making at my 2 previous jobs combined. Over the next year, I learned more about programming and business than I ever would have in college. Frank became more than a boss. He became the mentor and father figure I desperately needed. He pushed me hard but always built me up, the opposite of what I'd experienced with my own father. The way I see it, Frank told me one evening as we worked late on a client project, life dealt you a bad hand, but you're playing it better than most would. Your family betrayed you, but that doesn't define you. What defines you is how you respond, how you build something new from the ashes. Those words became my mantra as I slowly rebuilt my life. I saved enough to buy a decent laptop and started taking online programming courses to supplement what I was learning at work. I moved out of Troy's spare room after 6 months, renting a small studio apartment that was all my own. I sent one final letter to my parents on my 19th birthday, then resolved to stop trying to reconnect with people who had chosen to believe the worst about me without evidence. Frank's wisdom helped me process the pain and betrayal in healthier ways. Some people will always choose the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth, he would say. Your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to live your truth so well that their lie becomes obvious. By my 20th birthday, I had been promoted twice at Smart Tech and was leading development on a new project. The skinny, broken teenager sleeping in his car was becoming a distant memory, replaced by a young professional with growing confidence and skills. I had survived my family's betrayal not just by enduring, but by thriving despite it. What I didn't know was that Amanda's web of lies was still growing, and that 6 years later, it would entangle me once more. 6 years passed like a whirlwind of growth and transformation. By 24, I had leveraged my experience at SmartTech into a senior developer position at Nexus Innovations, one of the top tech companies in Columbus. My salary had jumped to 6 figures, allowing me to lease a luxury apartment downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city I once slept homeless in. In my spare time, I developed an app called SecureShare that revolutionized how small businesses could securely exchange sensitive documents. What started as a side project soon attracted attention from investors and industry publications. Venture capital firms began reaching out, sensing the potential for SecureShare to disrupt the market. My personal life was finally blossoming too. At a coffee shop near my apartment, I met Allison Taylor, a pediatric nurse whose warm smile and genuine interest in my rambling explanations of encryption algorithms made my heart race in a way it hadn't in years. After our third date, I found myself telling her things I had never shared with anyone since being kicked out. "So, you haven't spoken to your family in 6 years?" she asked as we walked along the riverfront one evening. "Not even to find out how your nephew or niece is doing?" I shook my head. After the 15th unanswered letter and 20th blocked call, I got the message. They made their choice. Allison squeezed my hand. Their loss. But I understand how much it must still hurt. The worst part isn't even the betrayal, I admitted. It's that sometimes, late at night, I still miss them. I miss the family I thought we were. Before I learned it was all conditional love. With Allison's gentle encouragement, I slowly opened up more, allowing myself to trust again in small increments. She never pushed but always listened, helping me see that my past didn't have to dictate my future. Everything was finally coming together. I had a career I loved, a promising business venture, a blossoming relationship, and a chosen family of friends who valued me for who I was. I believed the worst was behind me. Then came the day that shattered that illusion. I was attending a regional tech conference, representing Nexus at our company booth, when I heard a familiar voice call my name. Turning, I found myself face to face with my cousin Patrick, my mother's nephew, who had been more like an older brother during our childhood. "Christoph? It is you. Man, I almost didn't recognize you in a suit," Patrick said, pulling me into an awkward hug before I could react. "Patrick, this is unexpected," I managed, acutely aware of my colleagues watching with interest. "I work for Datasphere now," he explained, gesturing to his company lanyard. "Had no idea you were in tech too. Listen, can we grab coffee? There's a lot to catch up on." Curiosity overcame my initial reluctance. Patrick had always been kind to me, and he was one of the few relatives who hadn't immediately taken sides when I was kicked out. An hour later, we sat in the conference center cafe, the awkwardness between us thick enough to cut. "So," Patrick began, fidgeting with his coffee cup, "how much do you know about what's happened with your family since?" "You know." "Nothing," I said flatly. They made it clear I wasn't welcome in their lives. Patrick's expression shifted to one of discomfort. Look, I don't know how to say this delicately, so I'll just say it. Ryan, Amanda's first kid, the one she was pregnant with when all that went down? Jackson was definitely the father. DNA test confirmed it when they split up 2 years ago. The news hit me like a physical blow, so they kicked me out for nothing. Not that it would have been justified even if I had introduced them, but I didn't even do that much. It gets worse, Patrick said, lowering his voice. Amanda has been telling everyone in the family for years that you were into drugs, and that's why you got kicked out. Said you endangered her and the baby, and that's why they had to cut ties. My hands began to shake with anger. What? Yeah, and your parents have been supporting her through 3 failed attempts at college. They mortgaged their house to pay for her tuition and childcare for Ryan. Meanwhile, they've been telling everyone that you abandoned the family because of your drug problem, and that they've tried repeatedly to get you help. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. 6 years of building a new life. And all that time my reputation was being destroyed by more lies. There's more, Patrick continued, clearly uncomfortable but determined to tell me everything. Amanda dropped out again last year. She's been living with your parents, who are now in financial trouble because they've been bailing her out of credit card debt on top of everything else. She's got a second kid now, a 3-year-old named Lucas. Different father than Ryan. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process this flood of information. Not only had they believed Amanda's lies about me, they had continued to enable her while spreading false stories to justify cutting me out. Why are you telling me all this? I finally asked. Patrick met my eyes directly. Because last month at the family reunion, Amanda was showing everyone pictures of your apartment building. Said her twin brother was loaded now and lived in luxury while the family struggled. She had your business card too, the one for your app. Said you owed the family after all they'd done for you growing up. A chill ran down my spine. How did she even know where I live or about SecureShare? Social media stalking, I guess. Look, I'm telling you this as a warning. They're talking about reaching out to you for money. Amanda's pregnant again, by the way. The father took off when he found out. They're saying you have a responsibility to help since you're doing so well while they're struggling. I thanked Patrick for the warning but assured him there was no chance I would be manipulated into supporting people who had cast me aside and lied about me for years. We parted with awkward handshakes and promises to stay in touch that both of us knew were empty. That night in my hotel room, I couldn't sleep. The revelation that Amanda's campaign of lies had continued long after I was gone filled me with a cold fury I hadn't felt in years. All my progress in therapy, all the work I'd done to move forward, suddenly felt threatened by the knowledge that my family hadn't just abandoned me. They had actively worked to destroy my reputation while continuing to enable my sister's destructive behavior. When I returned home, I told Allison everything Patrick had revealed. Her usual compassionate expression hardened as I spoke. That's not a family, she said when I finished. That's a toxic system that sacrificed you to maintain its dysfunction. You owe them nothing. Her words comforted me, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that Patrick's warning was just the beginning. Something told me that after 6 years of silence, my family was about to come crashing back into my life, whether I wanted them to or not. I didn't have to wait long to find out I was right. 3 weeks after my conversation with Patrick, I was in my office reviewing the latest updates to SecureShare when my desk phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Christoph Harris speaking, I answered, expecting a client or vendor. Mr. Harris, this is Marcy at reception. There's a woman here claiming to be your sister. She's quite insistent about seeing you and says it's a family emergency. Should I send her up or call security? My heart raced as I considered my options. Part of me wanted to have Amanda removed immediately, but curiosity about what she could possibly want after 6 years of silence won out. I'll come down, I told Marcy. Don't send her up. When the elevator doors opened to the lobby, I immediately spotted Amanda sitting in one of the sleek leather chairs. Despite 6 years and 2 pregnancies, she was still recognizably my twin, though her once vibrant appearance had dulled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her clothes looked worn and hastily chosen. Next to her sat our parents, George and Linda Harris. My father's hair had gone completely gray, and my mother had gained weight. but the disapproving expressions they wore were exactly as I remembered. "Christoph," Amanda called out, rushing toward me with arms outstretched as if we were still close. "Thank God you're here. We've been trying to reach you for weeks." I stepped back, avoiding her embrace. "Really? 6 years of silence, and suddenly you've been trying to reach me for weeks? What do you want, Amanda?" My father stood, his posture stiff with what I recognized as forced dignity. "Is there somewhere private we can talk? This isn't a conversation for a public lobby." "No," I said firmly. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it here, or not at all." My mother's face crumpled in what appeared to be genuine distress. "Please, Christoph. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't important. It's about your sister and your nephews. And your niece," Amanda added, placing a hand on her visibly pregnant belly. "I'm having a girl this time." The calculated manipulation of the gesture wasn't lost on me. "Congratulations. Now why are you here?" Amanda glanced at our parents before continuing. "Jackson left me 2 years ago. My boyfriend Drew, Lucas's father, took off when I told him I was pregnant again. We've been living with Mom and Dad, but—" her voice trailed off. "But the bank foreclosed on their house last month." I finished for her, recalling what Patrick had told me. "Because they've been supporting you through multiple failed attempts at college and paying off your credit card debt." My parents exchanged surprised looks. "How did you know that?" my father demanded. "I have my sources. So what exactly do you want from me after 6 years of pretending I don't exist?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears that I couldn't tell were genuine or practiced. "We need a place to stay, just temporarily. The boys and I have been sleeping on friends' couches, and Mom and Dad are in a motel. I saw pictures of your apartment online. You have all that space, and we're family." "Family?" The word tasted like ashes in my mouth. "The same family that kicked me out based on your lies? The same family that's been telling relatives I have a drug problem?" My mother gasped. "That's not true. We never said that." "Save it." I cut her off. "I know everything. I know Ryan is definitely Jackson's son, confirmed by DNA test. I know you've been spreading lies about me to justify cutting me out. I know you mortgaged your house to fund Amanda's lifestyle while I was sleeping in my car and showering at Planet Fitness." My father's face flushed with anger. "Now wait just a minute. You have no idea what we've been through with your sister. She needed us." "And I didn't?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "I was 18 and homeless because you believed her lies without question. Did you ever once consider that maybe, just maybe, I was telling the truth?" An uncomfortable silence fell. Amanda broke it with a sob. "I made mistakes, okay? I was young and scared, but the boys need a stable home. You're doing so well with your tech job and that app you created. You could help us if you wanted to." The mention of my app sent a warning flare through my mind. "How do you know about SecureShare?" "I only launched it publicly last month." Amanda's expression flickered with something I couldn't identify. "Patrick mentioned it at the family reunion. Said you were some big-shot developer now." Before I could respond, a security guard approached our group. "Is everything okay here, Mr. Harris?" "Everything's fine, Dave," I assured him, then turned back to my family. "I'm sorry about your situation, but I can't help you. Not after everything that's happened." "Can't or won't?" my father challenged, his familiar intimidation tactics surfacing. "Both," I replied calmly. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting to get to." As I turned to leave, Amanda grabbed my arm. "Please, Christoph, at least meet your nephews. Ryan is 6 now, and Lucas is 3. They're good kids. They deserve better than what they're getting." For a moment, my resolve wavered. The thought of innocent children suffering because of adult conflicts bothered me deeply. But then I remembered Patrick's warning and steadied myself. "I wish them well, Amanda, but their welfare is your responsibility, not mine." As the elevator doors closed between us, I caught a glimpse of my sister's expression changing from pleading to something harder and more calculating. I knew in that moment that this confrontation was far from over. My suspicion was confirmed the very next day when I received a call from the receptionist again. "Mr. Harris, your sister and parents are back. They're causing quite a scene. Your sister is crying and saying you promised to help them but are now abandoning your family. Security is asking how you want to proceed." I felt a headache building behind my eyes. Tell security to escort them out. If they resist, call the police. Through the glass walls of my office, I could see my team glancing uncomfortably toward the elevator bank. Moments later, I heard Amanda's voice rising in volume as security guided her toward the exit. He promised to help us. My brother is abandoning his own nephews. After everything our family did for him growing up, I watched through the window as they were led outside. My father's arm around Amanda's shoulders. My mother trailing behind, looking shell-shocked. As they passed, my sister's purse caught on a decorative plant, spilling its contents. While security helped gather her things, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Amanda was picking up a key with a familiar blue tag identical to the spare key to my apartment that I kept in my desk drawer for emergencies. Somehow, during yesterday's commotion, she must have slipped into my office and taken it. I immediately checked my drawer. The key was gone. A sense of foreboding settled over me as I called the building management company to warn them not to allow anyone into my apartment, then contacted a locksmith for an emergency lock change. But I was too late. By the time I arrived home that evening, the damage was already done. I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped off the elevator onto my floor. The hallway outside my apartment was littered with toys, and the distinct sound of cartoons at high volume seeped through my door. My hand froze on the doorknob as I realized what must have happened. Taking a deep breath, I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment I had left immaculate that morning was now in chaos. Toys and clothes were scattered across my living room floor. Fast food wrappers and juice boxes covered my kitchen counter. And sitting on my $15,000 leather sofa, feet propped up on my coffee table, was Amanda, scrolling through her phone with a bored expression. "Finally home," she said without looking up. "The boys have been asking when you'd get here. I told them their Uncle Christoph works very hard to afford such a nice place." I stood frozen in shock, unable to process the violation of my space. "How did you get in here?" Amanda smirked. "You gave me a key, remember? When you said we could stay temporarily. I never said any such thing. And you know it. You stole my spare key from my desk yesterday." Before Amanda could respond, two young boys raced into the living room. The older one, who must have been Ryan, had Amanda's eyes and a stranger's chin. The younger, Lucas, was a miniature version of my sister. "Is this him? Is this Uncle Christoph?" Ryan asked, studying me with curious eyes. "Yes, sweetheart," Amanda replied, her voice honeyed with affection that seemed genuine. "This is your mom's twin brother." Lucas approached me cautiously, holding up a toy car. "Do you want to play cars with me?" The innocent question from a child who had no part in this manipulation caught me off guard. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Amanda jumped up. "That must be Mom and Dad. They went to get dinner for all of us." She opened the door to reveal our parents standing there with bags of Chinese takeout. My father walked in as if he owned the place, nodding curtly in my direction. "Christoph, nice place you've got here. Guess the tech business is treating you well." My mother at least had the decency to look uncomfortable as she followed him in. "We got extra egg rolls. I remember they were your favorite." I took another deep breath, fighting for control. "Everyone sit down. Now." Something in my tone made them all comply. Even the boys sensed the tension and hurried to the couch beside their mother. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady despite my rage. "Amanda, you and the boys can stay for 3 days. 3 days only, while you find another arrangement. Mom, Dad, you need to leave now. You are not staying here." "Now see here," my father began, drawing himself up to his full height. "No," I cut him off. "This is my home that I paid for. You kicked me out of yours when I needed you most. You don't get to walk in here and act like nothing happened. The boys need their grandparents," my mother protested. "The boys need stability, which none of you seem capable of providing. 3 days for Amanda and the kids. That's my final offer, and it's more generous than you deserve after breaking into my home." Reluctantly, my parents left, but not before my father muttered something about family obligations, and my mother tried to hug me. I stepped away from her embrace, unable to reconcile the woman who had once tucked me in at night with the one who had believed the worst about me without question. That night was one of the most surreal of my life. I gave Amanda and the boys my guest room, taking the couch for myself. I ordered pizza for dinner, watching in bewilderment as Ryan and Lucas devoured slice after slice as if they hadn't eaten properly in days. "They're good kids," I told Amanda as the boys watched a movie later. "They deserve better than being used as pawns." She had the grace to look ashamed, if only briefly. "I'm doing the best I can." "No, you're not," I replied quietly. "You're doing what's easiest, which is manipulating others to clean up your messes. Just like you did when you lied about me introducing you to Jackson." Amanda's expression hardened. "I was scared and pregnant. I needed our parents' support, not their judgment. You were always going to be fine. You were the smart one, the capable one. Everyone knew it." The admission stunned me. "So you ruined my life because you were jealous?" She shrugged, a gesture so callous it took my breath away. "I did what I had to do to survive, and now I'm doing it again. The boys and I are staying, Christoph. Not just for 3 days." "That's not happening," I said firmly. "On day 4, I'm changing the locks and calling the police if necessary." Amanda's smile turned cold. "We'll see." The next morning, I left for work earlier than usual, uncomfortable in my own home. I called Allison to explain the situation, and she offered to come over that evening for moral support, which I gratefully accepted. When I returned home that night with Allison, I found not only Amanda and the boys, but my parents as well, completely settled in. My mother was cooking in my kitchen. My father was using my laptop at the dining table. Ryan and Lucas were playing video games on my gaming system. "What part of you are not staying here was unclear," I demanded as I set down my briefcase. My father barely glanced up. "We're family, Christoph. In times of crisis, family sticks together. Except when one of them is kicked out at 18 based on lies," Allison said from beside me, her voice surprisingly sharp. My mother paused her cooking, looking Allison over with obvious disapproval. "And who might you be?" "I'm Allison, Christoph's girlfriend. And you must be the people who abandoned him when he needed you most." An uncomfortable silence fell, broken only by the sounds of the video game. Amanda finally stood, approaching Allison with an outstretched hand. "I'm Amanda, Christoph's twin sister. It's lovely to meet you. I've been telling Christoph how sorry I am about what happened in the past. We're trying to rebuild our relationship." Allison ignored the hand. Funny way of doing that, breaking into his apartment and moving in without permission. The next 3 days were a nightmare of escalating entitlement. My parents and Amanda treated my home as their own, using my things without asking, eating my food, running up my utility bills. Amanda registered my address for welfare benefits. My father broke my expensive coffee maker. My mother rearranged my kitchen to make it more functional. The boys, innocent in all this, were the only ones who showed any respect for my space, carefully asking permission before touching anything. On the third night, I overheard a conversation that confirmed my worst suspicions. I had stepped out to take a work call, returning quietly through the front door, when I heard my father's voice from my home office. "The patent application is almost ready," he was saying. "Once we transfer ownership of SecureShare to Amanda, we can approach those investors Christoph mentioned. With the money from that, we can get back on our feet and find our own place." "He'll never agree to sign it over," my mother's voice replied. "He doesn't need to," Amanda said, so smugly I could picture her expression. "I found his social security card and birth certificate in his files. We can handle the paperwork ourselves. After all, I'm his identical twin. Who's going to question it if I sign as him?" "I'm not comfortable with this," my mother said hesitantly. "It feels like stealing." "It's not stealing," my father insisted. "That app was based on ideas Amanda and Christoph came up with together as kids. Remember their little secret codes and puzzles? This is just making sure she gets credit for her contribution. Besides, he owes us after we raised him for 18 years. And once the transfer is complete," Amanda added, "we can suggest he finds somewhere else to live. After all, this apartment would be much better for the boys than that motel, and since the app will legally be mine." I'd heard enough. Quietly, I slipped back out the front door and called Allison. "I need a lawyer," I told her. "Right now. And I need somewhere to stay tonight." "What happened?" she asked, alarmed. "They're trying to steal my company. and I'm about to end this once and for all. The next morning, I returned to my apartment with Allison and my lawyer, Michael Donovan, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney who specialized in intellectual property and identity theft. We had spent the night documenting everything, from the stolen key, to the welfare fraud, to the attempted theft of SecureShare. When we entered, my family was gathered around the breakfast table, looking comfortable and settled in my home. Their expressions changed rapidly from surprise to defensiveness when they saw Michael in his crisp suit carrying a briefcase. "Family meeting," I announced, setting my laptop on the coffee table. "Everyone in the living room now." "Who's this?" my father demanded, eyeing Michael suspiciously. "This is Michael Donovan, my attorney. And before anyone says another word, I want to make it clear that this conversation is being legally recorded." Once everyone was seated, I began calmly. For the past 6 years, I've tried to understand why my own family would cast me out based on lies and never once question if they'd made a mistake. Last night, I finally got my answer. I opened my laptop and played an audio recording I'd made with my phone the night before, capturing their entire conversation about stealing SecureShare. Amanda's face drained of color. My father sputtered in protest. My mother began to cry. "That's taken out of context," Amanda insisted. "Is it? Let's talk about context then." I pulled out a folder of documents. "Let's start with the fact that you stole my spare key from my office. That's theft. Then you broke into my home. That's breaking and entering. You registered this address for welfare benefits without my permission. That's fraud." I turned to my parents. "You've been spreading lies about me having a drug problem to relatives for years. That's defamation. And last night, you conspired to commit identity theft and corporate fraud by attempting to transfer ownership of my company." My father stood up, face red with anger. "You ungrateful little—" "Sit down, George," Michael interjected. "I strongly advise you not to make threats right now. Your position is precarious enough." For perhaps the first time in his life, my father complied without argument. I continued, my voice steady. "Here's what's going to happen. You have 2 hours to pack your things and leave my apartment. If you're not gone by then, the police will remove you. I've already filed reports about the theft, breaking and entering, and attempted fraud." "You'd send your pregnant sister and her children to the streets?" my mother asked, incredulous. "No," I replied. "Unlike you, I don't punish children for their parents' mistakes." I turned to Amanda. "I've arranged for a 3-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. It's paid through the end of the year. That gives you 6 months to find a job and get on your feet. I've also arranged for childcare for the boys, so you can work. After December 31st, you're on your own." Amanda looked stunned. "Why would you do that after what we tried to do to you?" "Not for you," I said bluntly. "For Ryan and Lucas. They deserve a stable home and a mother who takes responsibility instead of manipulating others." I turned to my parents. "As for you two, I've done some research. Your financial problems stem primarily from enabling Amanda, but also from mismanaging the insurance agency. I'm willing to help you restructure the business and get back on solid ground, but there are conditions." My father's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What conditions?" "First, you both enter family therapy with me, paid for by me. Second, you publicly acknowledge to our extended family that I never had a drug problem, and that I was kicked out based on Amanda's lie. Third, you sign legal documents renouncing any claim to SecureShare or any other business I create. And if we refuse?" my father challenged. Michael stepped in. "Then my client proceeds with all legal actions available to him, including lawsuits for defamation and filing criminal charges for the attempted corporate theft. Given the evidence we have, you would likely face significant financial penalties and possible jail time." A tense silence fell over the room. Ryan tugged at Amanda's sleeve, his young face confused and frightened. "Mom, are we in trouble? Is Uncle Christoph mad at us?" The innocent question broke through the tension. I knelt down to Ryan's eye level. "No, buddy. I'm not mad at you or Lucas. None of this is your fault. Adults sometimes make mistakes and have disagreements, but that doesn't mean kids should suffer for it." Amanda looked at her son, then at me, something shifting in her expression. For the first time since she'd reappeared in my life, I glimpsed vulnerability rather than calculation. "I've been jealous of you our whole lives," she said quietly. You always made everything look so easy. School, friends, plans for the future. When I got pregnant with Ryan, I was terrified. I knew Mom and Dad would be disappointed, maybe even kick me out. So I made you the villain to save myself. I know, I said simply. And then it just continued. Every time I failed at something, it was easier to blame circumstances or other people than to admit I was making bad choices. I told myself you were fine, that you'd land on your feet because you always did. My mother wiped her eyes. We should have questioned more. Should have listened to you. After Amanda's second pregnancy, when Jackson left, we started to see patterns. But by then, it felt too late to reach out to you. It wasn't too late, I said. I sent letters for years. You returned them unopened. Because we were ashamed, my father admitted, his voice rough with emotion. I'd rarely heard from him. Not of you, of ourselves. The more successful you became despite what we'd done, the harder it was to face our mistake. I didn't know if I believed them. 6 years of built-up resentment couldn't disappear in a single conversation. But for the first time, I saw genuine regret in their faces, instead of entitlement or anger. Take the deal, I told them. Not for me, but for yourselves. And for Ryan and Lucas, who deserve grandparents who understand the difference between enabling and supporting. 6 months later, I sat in Dr. Winter's office for our weekly family therapy session. The road had been rocky, with setbacks and arguments, old wounds reopened before they could properly heal. But progress, however slow, was happening. My parents had sold their remaining assets to pay off the worst of their debts, including those incurred by Amanda's spending. They'd publicly cleared my name at the next family reunion, admitting to everyone that I had been wrongfully accused and cut off. The mixture of shock, sympathy, and respect I received from relatives was both vindicating and uncomfortable. Amanda had surprised everyone by enrolling in a paralegal program and maintaining a B average. She was now working part-time at a law firm while continuing her studies. The structure and professional environment seemed to give her the stability and purpose she'd been lacking. Most importantly, Ryan and Lucas were thriving in their new school and daycare, with regular weekend visits to their grandparents. As for me, SecureShare had secured major investment funding, transforming from a side project into a thriving business that would soon spin off from Nexus Innovations as its own company. Allison and I had moved in together, her steady presence helping me navigate the complicated process of reconciliation with my family. I still have nightmares about being homeless, I admitted during one session. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust them again. Trust is rebuilt in small moments over time, Dr. Winters reminded me. It's okay to maintain boundaries while leaving the door open to healing. On the anniversary of my being kicked out 7 years earlier, I invited my parents, Amanda, and the boys to dinner at my apartment. As we sat around the table that had once been the site of such tension, I watched my nephews chattering excitedly about school, my sister engaging Allison in conversation about her nursing work, my parents asking respectful questions about SecureShare, without any hints of entitlement. I've learned something through all this, I said as we finished dessert. Family isn't just about blood, it's about choices. Every day, we choose who to trust, who to support, who to forgive. The family I built when I had no one, people like Troy and Frank and Allison, taught me what unconditional support looks like. I looked directly at Amanda. What happened when we were 18 nearly destroyed me. But it also taught me resilience and showed me who I could become without the safety net I'd always taken for granted. I'm so sorry, Amanda said, the words simple but sincere after months of therapy. I can't change what I did, but I'm trying to be someone different now, someone my boys can be proud of. That's all any of us can do, my father said, his usual confidence tempered with new humility. Try to be better today than we were yesterday. As I looked around the table, I realized something profound. The family that had betrayed me hadn't just caused me pain, they had inadvertently set me on a path to discovering my own strength and building connections based on respect rather than obligation. The wound would always be part of me, but it no longer defined me. True family, I had learned, isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who you choose, and sometimes it's who chooses to become better for you. The journey from betrayal to forgiveness isn't linear or guaranteed, But when it happens, it brings a peace that revenge never could. That night, after everyone had gone home and Allison and I were cleaning up, she asked, "Are you okay?" That was a big step. "I am," I said, surprised to find I meant it. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with family after a betrayal? What would you have done in Christoph's position when his family tried to move in? Comment below with your thoughts on forgiveness versus cutting toxic family members out of your life. If you found this story meaningful, please like and subscribe for more content about family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your own path. And don't forget to share with someone who might be struggling with similar family challenges. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond to life's challenges.